Hello, I'm Dan Malotny, broker of record with Ottawa Urban Realty, and I'm here to talk about the March 2020 statistics for the Ottawa Real Estate Board sales. So basically, it's a continuation of what we saw happening in February 2020, right up until about March 13th, give or take, once things started to get serious with the pandemic and the state of emergency. But actually, it's surprising how well the month did go for home sales. And so what I'll say is residential sales, so these are non-condos, homes, townhomes, whatnot. The average price was up to $559 in March 2020, and that's up about 16.5% over March 2019. For condominiums, the average sale price was $370,000 thereabouts, and that was up around 27% over March 2019. So the combined increase or price change with condos and residential together works out to about a 23% increase year over year for March 2019 to March 2019, which is actually incredible no matter what, whether we're in a state of emergency or not. Let's talk about inventory for a few minutes. Basically, when we consider how many homes were on the market in a particular at the start of the month, and then we add in what was newly listed during the month, that'll give us the total number of listings available for sale during the month. If we put that and we divide it by the number of sales that occurred, that'll tell us approximately, it's just a rough guide, how many months of inventory we have. So what that means is that if there was no more listings and everybody could find a house they wanted, how many months would it be before all the homes were sold? If that number is less than 4 months, then we're generally considered to be in a seller's market. If it's more than 6 months, it's considered a buyer's market. So the last several months have been seller's market, and March 2020 continued the trend. For residential non-condo properties, the inventory versus sales was 2.6 months, and for condominiums it was 2.1 months. So moving forward, I expect that due to the lack of new listings, we're in a state of emergency, most people are not listing their homes. The people that are listing are generally, they have to move, they've already bought a home that say is closing this summer. But so moving forward, I think we will continue to be statistically in a state of emergency for at least another month, maybe 2 months. We're going to have to see how this plays out. Frankly, I think this is going to drag on a lot longer than most people would like. Possibly we'll be back into a market where homes can be comfortably listed, safely listed by June or July, but it might even be August. So we're not sure, obviously. Nobody really knows. We all have our opinions that are based on a lot of unknowns. So I expect we'll still be in a seller's market, and that may just be because there's a massive shortage of listings. Nobody that doesn't have to move will put their home on the market. So according to the Ottawa Real Estate Board, most of March's activity in sales happened in the first 2 weeks because of the nice weather and the activity and how active the market was previously in January and February and the end of last year. We basically had a bit of a head start on the market, so the spring market started earlier than usual, earlier in March, and that's why a lot of the sales came in so quickly. So what's going on with the state of emergency, COVID-19? So basically, we're not allowed to do open houses. Realtors, there's no open houses. There's very minimal showings. The number of showings tracked by a tool that realtors use for booking appointments are down over 80% in Ontario. That's the best statistic I could get, and it should be down this much. Now, for an interest's sake, I looked up the same statistic for the state of New York, and they're down over 98% over last year, and of course, that's expected. So according to the Ottawa Real Estate Board, this is their statement. Realtors are heeding government and public health authority warnings and advice and are being diligent in taking extra safety precautions. We certainly are. I personally haven't shown a home in close to 2 weeks. All this while still doing their best to help their clients successfully conclude or close real estate transactions that were already in progress. So what we're saying is that there are people that the process had already started. Maybe the home was on the market, it was conditionally sold, or there had been some showings and offers were going to be in 3 days, whatever the status. We're trying to help people get through the process and reduce some of the stress, because there's certainly a lot of stress on a lot of people right now, not even anything to do with moving, and moving is fairly stressful at times. My job is to reduce that stress. Okay, so what's going on? This is interesting. 1,579 new listings for residential, and 469 new condo listings in March. The 5-year average for those numbers is 2,200 for residential and 665. So the number of new listings is way down in March. Now, part of that is because of the market we were in, but also a big part, I am positive, is that there are a lot of people that are deciding to wait to list their homes. You don't want strangers in your home. We're in a state of emergency. We should all be taking this seriously, and luckily most people are, so thank you. I appreciate it. Let's talk about days on market, DOM. So how many days did it take to sell a home or a condo in Ottawa in March, and how does that compare with March of last year? So a residential home took about 25 days in March, and that's an average to sell versus 33 days in 2019. So what's that? Statistically, we're down a fair bit. For condos, it took about 16 days on average to sell a condo in March 2020 versus 37 days in 2019. So that's quite a difference. That's a drop of about 57%. So condos, as we know, are in short supply right now, and it's funny. 3 to 5 years ago, condos were having quite a difficult time. Their prices had actually gone down compared to, say, around 2010 to 2012, and now we have a shortage. Part of that, I think, is the rising of the average sale price, especially for residential non-condos, and part of that is that a lot of builders canceled or delayed building. About 10 years ago, 7 to 8 years ago, they started slowing down on their building, and we need more condos on the market. Okay, so what's going on with multiple offers? I shared a statistic last month that in February 2020, according to the Real Estate Board, Ottawa Real Estate Board, about 58% of homes sold over asking price. To me, I thought that was incredible. Not necessarily in a good way. It makes for a very difficult market for buyers, and still fairly stressful for sellers, even though they'll benefit from such a market. So the Ottawa Real Estate Board didn't release those stats for this month, for this past month, March 2020. I believe there is still a relatively high percentage of homes selling over asking, and that is mainly because of the markets I look at, the neighborhoods, and the types of properties I pay most attention to. I would say at least 50% or more of the time that I would expect it to go over asking 2 months ago, it's still going over asking. Possibly not as much over asking. I expect there's probably less offers than there would have been on certain properties, but still, as soon as you're in a multiple offer situation, if the home is priced properly and shows well, there's still a good chance it'll go over asking. Now, let's see what happens in April. Certainly we will be in for some changes. So moving forward, nobody can really say what's going to happen. I suggested some things at the start of this video, and you know what? My personal opinion is that actually real estate, and the way we do it in Ottawa, in Ontario, and even in Canada, is going to change slightly. We're going to do more virtual. We're going to use more Zoom. We're going to use more FaceTime. We're going to use all the tools to help us experience a home as best as you can before viewing a home, and try and eliminate the home from the list, or decide to get in as soon as possible. So you're going to start to see new technologies as well, and we've already started to see some of the, whether it's a 3D visit or a walkthrough. And there's some interesting ones where they could kind of show the layout of the house. Now it's still not perfect. It still has some things to work on, but it's still very interesting. And what I think over time will happen is that, let's say rather than a buyer seeing 5 to 15 homes, let's say over 2 weeks if they're in a rush, they might narrow it down to 3 and then visit the 3 homes, have a good look and decide. The other thing that's going to happen, I believe, is that there will be more electronic use for the actual home transfers. So right now, as realtors, we can use electronic signatures to set up the transaction. Lawyers can use certain things to a certain extent. It depends on the bank, it depends on the rules in the province, obviously, because it goes down to the province. But I think we're going to see changes in legislation on what lawyers, realtors, and other professionals in this type of market can do and how they can handle it. And it will actually lead to, most likely, a more stable market for when things like this. Hopefully we don't have this again, but everybody says it might happen again in our lifetimes. But it will add to further professionalism and further protection and further, it'll allow the market to be smoother in different times, and I think this is all good. So some changes will require updates to legislation of how realtors, lawyers, and banks do business and fulfill their roles in helping with home ownership. Thank you for watching. I hope you're able to be in a comfortable spot during these trying times and get outside for some fresh air on occasion. It is a lovely early April day, and I'm at home. Take care.